Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to DMLab London and welcome to Rich Mix. We've got some really exciting talks today and I can't wait to hear from all three of our speakers. We're going to have 2 presentations, then a break where you can play with some of our amazing accessible musical instruments, and there's also drinks and snacks free outside. And then we'll have a final presentation. As part of all the presentations after each one, please feel free to ask questions or make comments. We are also streaming live to YouTube, so we may get some comments and questions from YouTube as well. And we'll do our best to answer anything. I do want to take this opportunity to say, and I'm probably going to say it a million times, but on Sunday, the 24th of May, here at Rich Mix, we'll be having our first ever DMLab festival, which is going to be a whole day of instrument building, similar presentations to these of really innovative tech, and then an amazing gig in the evening. So please keep checking our Instagram and our website to find out more. We're going to have some amazing disabled, deaf, and neurodivergent musicians, platforms, all using accessible musical instruments. And there's going to be an instrument building workshop in the morning, talks in the afternoon, and then this gig in the evening. You'll probably hear me say it a million times because I'm really, really excited. And that will be here at Rich Mix on the 24th of May. We're excited. We hope you'll be excited as well. Okay, so I want to get on to introducing our first set of speakers. We have Tom Stainford and Webb from OutcomePath. I'm reading off my phone, by the way. I'm not texting. I can't multitask that well. Tom and Aid will be talking about the world's first ever sound-free concert that they, through the technology company OutcomePath, will be staging in London in May 2026. An audience with cochlear implants will experience and explore streamed Gen AI music. No speakers, no recordings, no sound. Quotation marks. Once and gone. The concert challenges paradigms of inclusion for deaf people and prompts debate about access and AI deep body technologies. I asked Aid and Tom if they wanted me to read their bios. They said they didn't mind, and I think their bios are really interesting, so I'm going to read a bit about them. Aid chairs the London Tech AI Business Outcome Path and lectures on AI internationally. A musician for 40 years, he composed a track designed to help people sleep that has 1.3 million streams on Spotify. He is a gigging jazz musician and fascinated by the philosophy and psychology of music. Tom is Chief Marketing Officer of OutcomePath's Special Projects Division. He has spoken on rare disease, branding, and inclusive design until recent medical challenges was a 25-year classical guitar player. He has a hearing aid and a cochlear implant and considers Mark Knopfler to be his spiritual mentor. On that note, please welcome Tom and Aid.
I'm going to take that over your head, Tom. There you go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Tom, and this is Aid. We are delighted to be able to speak to you this evening about the world's first sound-free concert, which is truly a world first. And we are really excited to be able to talk to you about it because it offers it forces us to ask many questions about inclusion and the integration of technology and transhumanism and about community and the way that we kind of engage with music and appreciate it. So thank you all for coming and thank you for your time. And I think that we can dive right in. As the introduction said, we work for OutcomePath, who are an advisory company who advise numerous companies on AI and technology integration. We'll also want to give a quick hat tip to Advanced Bionics, who are very kindly sponsoring this event. They are one of the big 3 cochlear implant users, so their participation was essential because we're essentially using cutting-edge technology to make this event a reality. I'm not intending this next section to be a medical seminar. I'm not a qualified audiologist, so please forgive me for any oversimplifications in the interest of speed, basically, because we don't have a huge amount of time to speak. How we hear sound, vibrations through the air. The dictionary definition of sound is vibrations through the air or through a permeable membrane. So the way that we hear sound is that vibrations pass into the ear. They stimulate the cilia, which is the tiny hairs within the ear, and the bones within the inner ear. They vibrate, and they basically, through the wonders of nature, they transform these vibrations into electrical impulses within the cochlea, which are then passed along the auditory nerve to the brain. The brain then interprets these electrical signals as sound. Sound itself, very high frequency sound is very high pitched, so speaking like that. And very low frequency, very slow, long frequency is the deeper kind of bass notes. The way that we test hearing within an audiological clinic or within the hospital is with an audiogram. And it's incredibly low tech in some ways. They play you some sounds and you press a button if you can hear the sound. And they basically put all of this information on an audiogram. And along the x-axis along the bottom, you have all the frequencies. So the very low frequencies are on the left-hand side, the very high frequencies are on the right. And if you can imagine, along the very top is perfect hearing. So the lower down on the scale that you put your X or your O is basically how much hearing you've lost, how many decibels you can't hear that particular frequency at. So for this unfortunate person, they've essentially got fairly good hearing in the lower frequencies on the left-hand side, and then you see their hearing unfortunately drops off a precipice, and they're not very good at hearing the higher pitched sounds. Now, how do we address this? Well, with a hearing aid, if you can look at this graph, this person has also got reasonably good hearing for the lower frequencies, and then they have lost some of their hearing in the higher frequencies. Hearing aids very cleverly pick up all of sound with the microphone, and then they basically amplify only the sounds that you tell it to amplify. So on the diagram, you can see that for the higher frequencies towards the right-hand side of the graph, much more amplification takes place because the hearing aid is essentially trying to rectify the particular frequencies that you're not very good at hearing. Now, there's a big difference between hearing aids and cochlear implants, because cochlear implant does a very similar thing in terms of amplifying only the frequencies you want. But whereas a hearing aid is essentially a very clever amplifier in the sense that it picks up the microphone picks up the sound, the processor decides which sounds to amplify, and then it basically creates that sound and amplifies it and plays it down through the tube into the ear. So the person is essentially using their natural hearing to hear, albeit with certain amplified frequencies. A cochlear implant is very different in that although you still have a microphone picking up the sound and you have a processor basically amplifying that sound, instead of playing it as sound into the ear, it immediately transforms it into electrical signals. And those signals go directly through the skull into the I'm really struggling with this particular phrase, into basically the implant itself, which is inserted into the auditory nerve. So essentially, there's no sound there in the sense that there's no vibrations or amplification. It basically converts it immediately into electrical impulses, which go directly to the brain. Why am I mentioning all this, and why is this a very simple explanation for how CIs work relative to this concept? I'm sure that many of you have heard of silent discos, where the DJ plays music and people in the audience listen to the music with Bluetooth headphones. We thought this was a wonderful idea, but what if we could take it one step further, where instead of playing essentially music through the headphones, so there is sound, although obviously only the person wearing the headphones can hear it, what if we remove that step entirely, and the sound that we played was streamed to cochlear implant users, who then obviously process the sound and immediately input it into the auditory nerve. As I mentioned before, the dictionary definition of sound is vibrations through the air or membrane. So we would essentially be creating the world's first sound-free concert, because at no point are there any vibrations. And then we thought, well, why don't we take it one step further? Instead of playing music that's already been created by instruments, by musicians, that's been recorded and is then on a CD or a music file and is then played through a laptop and then streamed, we thought, what if we take all of that out completely and have a truly sound-free concert from complete inception all the way through to the enjoyment of the piece by the audience. And so we thought, we'll remove that, we will take out the recordings, and instead of playing musical recordings or pre-recorded music, we will use generative AI to create the music live on stage, which is then streamed.
Ta-da.
And that's what we're doing on May the 9th. It will be the world's first truly sound-free concert. Why are we doing this? I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Aid, who will now take the stage to basically talk us through the concept a little bit more and the kind of things that we are hoping to stimulate with this event.
Great, thank you, Tom. So how did it all begin? There's an origin story to this. So back in 2018, I was doing some work creating musical tracks to help people go to sleep, eventually. You may have heard of binaural beats. Some people call them binaural, but binaural beats, which are the pulses created in the brain when you present two different waves through headphones into each ear. And it creates this pulse. And so, can you move one on, Tom? So the ears, I want you to consider the ears to be like two channels on the brain's mixing disc, okay? They are the inputs, but they are not themselves the interpreters of sound. The brain is an interpreter of sound. The problem with that idea is it makes you think of the sort of brain as a piece of hardware that's running software that understands music. But the brain isn't like that. The brain is what you would call sort of wetware. It actually builds and transforms its own pathways. The software and the hardware are actually part of the same thing. Anil Seth has written a brilliant essay recently talking about how you just can't take a neuron and turn it into a transistor, because neurons die, neurons commit suicide, neurons generate themselves when they need to. The brain is a very, very complex organism. Now, next one, please. Binaural beats basically say when you hear these two waves, part of the brain that does location of sound in space performs a trick when it has these two things. It creates a pulse in the middle of the brain, okay? And I'm going to play you, if I can, just a little bit of the track that I composed. Could you move it on one, Tom? I put it up on Spotify thinking this would be interesting. a few years later, it's now had 1.3 million streams, and people are putting themselves to sleep every week doing it. So if you do listen to it, please don't operate heavy machinery. That'd be good. But I'll just give you a little snatch of it. What you're getting here is a 4 hertz pulse, 4 times a second, much too low for you to be able to hear. But the brain, when it detects this 4 hertz pulse, entrains itself to go in time with it, okay? That's what the brain can do. It can adapt incredibly well. Tom, can you move it on one more? There you go. So 1.317 million plays. Perhaps by tonight, if you all stream it, I can get up to 1.4. Who knows? One more, Tom. By putting together cochlear implants and generative AI, we think there's a possibility of creating a new paradigm of experience. And I want to talk about this in terms of inclusivity. One more. When we have generative music going direct, effectively, into the skulls and the cochlears of a deaf audience, you're not getting a sort of pound shop hearing, which is one of the problems of the regard of the deaf community, is this idea of we take our music and you can sort of get a bit of it by having a cochlear implant or a hearing aid. It's actually creating something new. I would call it a bit like perhaps being able to experience what a bat experiences when it's experiencing that echolocation. It's something which as humans we know we'll never be able to experience. And the really important thing with this concert is that this won't just be hearing simplified, it will actually be a new category. And everybody in the audience, like myself, who has normal hearing, won't be able to take part. Now, some people have said that doesn't sound very good, not be able to take part. But one of the problems with power dynamics and with prejudice is always that there's that feeling of we'll bring you up to our level by fitting technologies to it. We think it's time that's flipped, and there is a chance for a deaf audience to be able to have a new kind of aesthetic experience. And this is a shift to be investigated and to be celebrated. So what's the main aim? Debate. Debate about what inclusion is. It's also to challenge that paradigm of what sound is when there's deep body technologies involved. I've been wearing an insulin pump for 40 years that goes sort of wires into me. And our relationship with technologies is changing. If Elon Musk has his way, we'll all have Neuralinks and he'll be moving us around like characters on Pac-Man, probably. Who knows? But these technologies actually are portals for better inclusion, for better understanding, and for us to be able to build new experiences, new aesthetic experiences for people who are not ordinarily included in them. And so, next one, Tom. Oh look, my N went a bit funny there, but the aim is to, press it once more, there you go, to just turn a bit of exclusion into inclusion. And we're doing this with the deaf audience on May the 9th. As I say, hopefully you'll read about it in the papers, but it's really to sort of change that feeling of who is top of that aesthetic tree, and can we just shake it a little bit so that some of those prejudiced views fall out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom and Addy. I'm just getting in frame. That was really, really fascinating and so inspiring. Do we have any questions from anyone on YouTube? Please do comment or ask a question. Anyone in the room have a question for Tom and or Addy?
I guess it begs the question, is that good? It begs the question, so if I, as a, in quotes, normal, well, gradually losing it person, can I get a cochlear implant? No.
No, you can't. But you have to remember that for most of human history, that exclusion has been in place. And this is the important thing, is sometimes it's useful to turn the tables, if just for an evening, just to stimulate that debate about what inclusion is, okay? So people going, well, hang on, this is very exclusive. You know, hearing people will never be able to hear this because we're not recording it. It's not going through any speakers. It will never be heard in the normal sense of sound being heard. But that to me is a good thing. Sometimes you have to throw a firecracker into the room of these things to get people talking about it and asking the question, why, how, what if?
Thank you. I've got one more over there.
Yeah, that was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. My question, how does it get from the generative AI patch to the cochlear implant? So where's the pickup on your, have you got a, yeah, how will it get to your auditory nerve?
I can pick this up if you like. But so cochlear implants have usually one, sometimes two types of input. One of them is Bluetooth. So people who use Zoom with a cochlear implant, they can have it so the Bluetooth goes directly, there doesn't need to be any sound anywhere, it goes directly from the other end, where of course there is sound, through Bluetooth, straight into the cochlear implant, straight down effectively into the brain overall. Advanced Bionics, who are our partner in this, they also have an FM ability so that you can easily include everybody in the room so long as they tune into that FM frequency. But at no stage is there a vibration of a medium that constitutes sound.
So would I be right in thinking that if I were to use an FM receiver and a pair of I still couldn't eavesdrop in?
No, unfortunately, unfortunately not, no. It's the FM frequencies that are going through are very different from the ones that would be picked up by there. There's a proprietary system, as there is with everything, but the proprietary system. But for us, we want to make sure that everybody who has normal hearing in that room thinks, I wonder what just happened. Yeah. I wonder what it sounded like. I wonder what that aesthetic experience was like for those people. And the fact that they will never know is actually quite a good thing in my mind.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's really interesting.
Cheating.
Thanks.
And the interesting additional thing I just want to bring up is that you don't actually know what they're going to be listening to. Because unlike when people with hearing or people with hearing aids assemble and we hear the same piece of music, we essentially are hearing the same piece of music with the same hardware. And broadly, we understand what each of us is listening. That's not the case for cochlear implants because they never actually listen to that music when it's streamed because it's already been converted into electrical impulses. So we're essentially relying and praying to some extent that the people who have developed the software for the cochlear implants have essentially got very, very good at understanding the electrical impulses and how they relate to how sound is actually perceived by normal people. But there's no real way of us knowing how the brain interprets those impulses. So although we're playing the generative AI signals, if you like, and we're sending the same signal to all of the audience, everybody has a different brain and everybody interprets those impulses differently, and so they will each have a unique experience. And although they may talk about it afterwards with the other people in the audience, there's no real way of knowing if we all shared the same experience. And that, to me, is quite exciting because, as we said, it's a one and gone experience. This is the pinnacle, if you like, of transhumanist audiological technology. It's not been done before. Presumably, we hope that it will be done in future many times, but it will never be repeated in the sense of we'll be listening to the same music or the same people will perceive it in the same way. And so it really is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime thing that it's really exciting to be part of.
And there is actually an opportunity. So if any of you know any Gen AI composers, okay, people who can write very long prompts and work with generative AI music, there is a chance for at least one of those to be involved in that evening if you want. So we still have our feelers open for anybody in any genre, could be anything, Could be rap, could be classical, could be whatever you like. But if anybody knows any Gen AI composers, come and talk to us afterwards, because there's a chance they could have a world's first on their CV. Thank you. That's great. Oh, sorry, there are more questions. It's really hard to see you all there.
I have one which is a little bit of a tangent, but I was just wondering, your piece of music on Spotify,
Yeah.
how long is that thing?
It's 8 minutes, 45 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So if you put it on repeat, it should be enough to conk you out and put you to sleep, usually.
So it's designed to loop?
Well, it's easy to loop. It's not actually designed to loop, but if you come and see me afterwards, I can send you a super long version. But normally, I'm asleep within about 3 minutes of that. So yeah. Is there one more?
Yeah, I once came here for a Deaf Rave concert, and I was the only person in the room that couldn't communicate because the music was really loud. But if you're signing, it doesn't matter. So everyone could chat away. I didn't know what they were doing because I don't understand BSL. And that gave me the experience of being the person that can't communicate.
Yeah.
And everyone else could. And you're trying to replicate that to some extent by giving the advantage to people who are deaf.
It's really important to understand that the fish doesn't feel the water. For those of us who have normal sensory experiences, we just cannot understand what it might be like to be out of that water for a while because it's just baked into us. That's how we've grown up from babies to experience it. It's really important, I think, for people to suddenly go, hang on, why can't I be part of this? And not only not be part of it, but actually, if you took normal hearing into this concert, it wouldn't work. It's a new category of, as I say, of aesthetic experience. And I think this will extend across different senses. We were talking earlier on about sort of haptic visual experiences projected onto the back using electrical signals. Synesthetes, people who can hear colours and can smell sounds. Synesthetes are known to have greater facility to be able to remember things than anybody. In fact, the best documented super memory person was a person who had 5 sense synesthesia. So every experience was shared across 5 senses. And in this case, it's really important to understand that the experience inside the brain of that audience on May the 9th will be experiencing something almost entirely new. There's Gen AI music, there's silent discos and everything else, but never has there been a concert without the definition of sound.
And really, should we be questioning whether we need to come up with a new word for it?
Yeah.
Because sound, as we know, is vibrations, and music is a form of sound. If there's no vibrations, then what are they hearing?
Yeah, what is it?
They're not hearing music under the definition of what music is, because they're not hearing sound. So what are they listening to? Should we have a new word for this new form of sensory exploration or stimulus, that they are engaging with and hopefully enjoying?
So if anybody's got any new words, come and see us afterwards and we'll try and use it on the night. But thank you all for your time. Sorry, we've just hit our time slot, yeah.
Yeah, we do have one more question, but it may be quite a long answer. So if you can feel free to be very succinct and controversial, whatever you want.
Okay.
But we've had a YouTube question. Why Gen AI and why not, for example, an electronic musician who isn't using an acoustic instrument but is already using signals on a computer?
It's a very good point, actually. We thought this through a lot. The issue always with anybody who is using an instrument like some of these over here is that it would be a hearing person who is used to how something works. I'm a guitarist, and I could play you a song if you blocked my ears. But in many ways, it's the experience of sound that allows me to do that. It's the experience of sound that would allow an electronic musician to say, well, I know that if I do this, it creates that. The interesting thing about Gen AI is that these things are done from prompts. Okay, so you get that sort of description, you get a linguistic description of another sense, but that person will never know. And in many ways, that's not the same with somebody using electronic instruments, even if they can't hear them. Just removing the hearing doesn't do what we wanted it to do. There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we please have a massive round of applause for Addy and Tom?
Thank you.
I'm going to reposition myself. Okay. Well, our next presenter is bringing up their brand new in development instrument. I'm going to start introducing them. I failed at the first hurdle. Cheryl Hui is a musical instrument designer and researcher working at the intersection of accessibility, technology, and community music making. In this presentation, she shares the development of the JOS Music Mat, co-designed with Joy of Sound, a charity that runs inclusive community music workshops. This project reflects Cheryl's belief that music making is for everyone, and that every voice, however it is expressed, deserves to be heard. We're really excited to have Cheryl here because she is one of our current Drake Music Seed Lab funders, and they're going to be developing these musical instruments over the next few months. I can't remember the timeline, but thank you so much, Cheryl. Can we have a big round of applause, please?
Okay, so let's see if we have it. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so hi everyone. So first of all, I need to thank Drake Music for giving me the ground to develop this project. So the idea at the very beginning is I was volunteering at the Joy of Sound, and I come across a gentleman who loves to express himself, but he wasn't able to play one of the musical instruments that existing. But we already got a guy who built a lot of adaptive musical instruments for the group. Therefore, I'm just trying to see if technology can make some changes to it. So the topic today, when I was thinking about, is thinking about inclusiveness more than accessible. So how I think about accessibility is we create something, and that is barriers to things, barriers to people. And then we try to break down all these barriers in order to make it accessible. So why don't we think it the other way around, just like what Tom and Esther talk about? Why don't we start from the point we think about including everyone else? That's why I start thinking about this musical instrument, an inclusive digital musical instrument system. So the thing about system is it's not a one single rigid musical instrument, but a modular system, which can try to fit more people in. So where did I get this concept is there's a book called Mismatch by Kate Holmes. If people who study design, it's a really good read because it talks about how we include people, exclude people. So then I start to think about, how about if we make a circle that is not rigid, but having different entrances for people to get into it. So everyone can try to join the circle together. So a little bit about my background. I was trained to be a classical musician. So a very traditionally trained percussionist. But then when I come to the UK, I studied computational art. So that's why I start to build different musical instruments. And you can see my musical instrument is, I would say, more aesthetic comparing to traditional musical instrument. To me, music and also art, they come hand to hand together. So it can't be separate. So that's why I also try to visualize my music, how I want people to feel. I want people to feel calm, and then I want people to practice mindfulness as well, so we know about our presence, and then we also feel about all the senses. So that is like my artistic background. So let's move on to the project. So my collaborator, Joy of Sound, and we have Chris here today. So he's the guy that built a lot of adaptive musical instruments for the group. And without him, basically, I don't have so much idea how to refine my musical instrument. And Joy of Sound is a local charity, and they aim to create a safe space for everyone to be included and play music together. One of the important things I feel about Joy of Sound is they give me the sense of being included. So being an immigrant in the UK wasn't as easy, especially now. So, I mean, that's the way that I feel being included is such a good feeling. That's why I want everyone to be included as well. So in our workshop, most of the time we are being very encouraging and non-judgmental. And we treat everyone as an equal. Every time we start our music making by sharing a sign of silence. This represents all of us are equal. No matter you're a volunteer, the facilitator, or the participants who have complex disabilities, we are all equal and we present together. And then we start our music making. So all it sounds really nice, really inclusive, really sweet. But sometimes there's some obstacles for us. Some of our participants may have very low muscle tone, so they can't produce a sound by playing their musical instrument. So the facilitators or the volunteers will try to get their micro gestures to interpret it and turn it into some musical elements, for example, rhythm or melodies. But the problem is they still go through a process of proxy, right? It's not the participant themselves having the agency to create music. Instead, we help them to sound. But does it really their voice? We're not sure. But we are trying to facilitate it, right? So therefore, I'm thinking about maybe we can try to help them regain the agency as well through the project. And this is how I try to center my project. And at the very beginning, it was start very small. There is a gentleman who cannot control his muscle well. He loves walking around, but he's blind as well at the same time. So there's no musical instrument that is suitable for him in the group. Therefore, I'm thinking about, oh, how about build a music mat for him so he can dance around and make music? But is that enough? Then I start to having more reflections on my project and how I make music. How I make musical instrument. Then it comes up with something really idealistic when I'm thinking about, okay, can we build a musical system? That is not really one size fits all, but having it modular so everyone can try to fit in. And also, can we build a musical instrument or system that is both interesting to people who have experience in music, who are maybe disabled, or people who have no musical experience. Can we do it? Because we can think backwards. When we are playing the piano, the guitar, it's not always enjoyable at the very beginning when we're starting with our first note, first chord, first scale, and then you spend years to master it before you can enjoy your music playing. but can we try to make it easier to start with the music playing enjoyment? And also, I start to reflect on how I build musical instrument. Every time when I come across, if we want people to enjoy music playing at the first place, then just remove the learning curve. Make it easy, just using tilt sensor, just using a knob, just using touch. But is all this interaction meaningful? That may not be the case. So there's a lot of reflections going on in the past few months, starting from Drake supporting my project to the day that I created this prototype. So yeah, so all these ideas become very idealistic, utopian, but what I feel like is if we try to insist and then keep on working on things, even just 0.1% improvement, we are still doing some progress. So we should still try. So that's why we try. And yeah, so it's kind of a co-design project at the first place. So we have our co-design team. So I'm being the designer and also like the maker of the musical instruments. And then we have facilitators who tell me about what they really need to see or how the musical instrument can work in the group setting. So for facilitators, we have Chris being a musical instrument builder. And then we also got another facilitator who worked as an occupational therapist. So she gives me a lot of feedback on how musical instruments can work with people maybe using wheelchair or having very low muscle tone, or how I can give very useful feedback loop to the user. So, and then I also got some of the participants from the Joy of Sound to join this project. Most of them are verbal because I'm still working on how to conduct a very ethical research or interview with nonverbal participants without having too much interpretation, but instead having their own thoughts on things. So if anyone got the experience on it, please let me know, because I really want to know more and to refine the project. So after talking to all the design team, we come up with a list of concerns on our priority. So first of all, safety. So we need to make sure that we hide the cables. Make sure that there won't be trip hazard, because we have wheelchairs going around, and then some of the participants may walk around. So therefore, we need to make sure cables free. We need to make sure the musical instrument is reliable, so it won't cause any false fire and then making the user feeling frustrated about the situation. And about the logistic, it's because all the support workers and volunteers need to set up other musical instruments at the same time. So we need to make sure that things can be set up by just plug and play. So basically, the setup time will be less than 5 minutes every time when they want to change parts or plugging the musical instruments into the sound system. And hygiene as well, because we have so many participants. So we want to make sure things can be cleaned easily. Just spray the sanitizer, wipe it off, and we are like having a perfect musical instrument to use. And about the haptic feedback as well, because some of the disabilities is that we do not have really sensitive sensing. So therefore, we need to make sure that we give them some haptic feedback to acknowledge that they are playing the musical instrument. So that's why I give up on using e-textile in the end, because at the very beginning, I was thinking about e-textile, but when you touch it, basically you're just touching the cloth. You have no idea that you are playing musical instruments. Therefore, I go a little bit mechanical this time. And also modular, simply because to make it more idealistic, make it being able to fit more people into the circle. Therefore, I'm thinking about modular. So I think, yeah, so the project is basically in my mind for over a year. At the very beginning, at the very end of December, is the very first few times that I volunteer at the Joy of Sound and start to thinking about, can we make something together? And then very grateful that we secured funding from Drake in September, and we start building things. At the very beginning, as I said, we start with e-test out, but the problem is it's hard for us to clean it. We can throw it into the washing machine, but the problem is it will just decay, and the signal will just become messy in the end, so it won't work. So, and then we try to do a little bit of this kind of mechanic design. So the thing that inspired me is the kinetic flooring. So I'm not sure if anyone read the news about like when you're walking on some floors, you can create electricity, generate electricity. So, and then this inspires me to think about how about if we are walking on the floor. So this one is the new floor, treat it as a tile. So that's why we start with this design. And then we have like multiple testing and then interviewing, feedback, and finally like come to, I think, January 26th, we start to have something that is sounding and wireless. And then in the previous month, last month, I start to like taking this to present to different users from the Joy of Sound, having the test play, and then to have their feedback and try to refine and make more different forms of this musical instrument system. So yeah, so we carried some sort of interview and then making iteration and back to interviews again, iteration. So it's just kind of stacking up and looping this process for multiple times. And I'm sure this will happen quite often as well when we are trying to build this musical instrument system together. So what is actually inside this musical instrument? So can we have the top? So from this graph, we can see on the top, we have the key. So basically, you can pull it apart. There's just a 3D printed key and with a magnet inside. And also for this part is the, can we see from here? Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah. So we can also see this one is the key 3D printed. And then this one is hook and loop fastener. So basically, you can just get this kind of things from Amazon or like any shops. And then the magnet. And then this one is 3D printed, and the other part is also 3D printed. So basically, I'm tearing my musical instrument apart. That is also the idea of this modular system. So this one is a TPU infill. So it's squishable. So this is the thing that is providing the physical resistance when the musician is pressing against it. So this gives them the physical feedback directly. So they will know that they are playing the sound. And at the same time, you can hear the sound as well. Yeah. And then this one, also for the keys, we can print it as textured. So if people who have visual impairments, they can just through touching it to know that they're playing on different keys. And of course, for printing, we can use different filaments to print it as well. So it will give different texture. And at the bottom of the whole thing, the technical part is there's a Hall effect sensor. So what the Hall effect sensor do is to track the magnetic field strength. So through the magnet, when it comes closer to the sensor, that will be stronger signal. That's to create the sound, to control the loudness and also the brightness of the sound. So this is how this musical instrument basically built. And yeah, this is the modular part. So the modular part can actually reduce the maintenance cost. The idea is if some part is wear off, take it away, replace it. Or if we want to make sure everything is clean, we can just take this two out, clean it, put it back without hurting the electronic parts. And also, with people who have different muscle tone ability, we can change this TPU infill to change the resistance. So therefore, for people who have very low muscle tone, they can still play it. For people who are strong, we can just change this one to a higher resistance. They can still enjoy the similar learning curve to play it. So, but for now, it seems to be just having 4 keys. So where is the agency gone? It's just randomly a chord. The idea is all this is modular, is individual. So it's actually not 4 keys. This is just a prototype for wheelchair adaptation for now, because we need to test the things out. We can expand it to as many keys as possible because they are all wireless, just connected to a very tiny microcontroller and send it all back to this Raspberry Pi. So we have different components. Let me just find this one, the network. So basically, we can have many tiles, but at the same time still sending the OSC signals back to our Raspberry Pi to do the audio processing, sound synthesis, and then using the RF transmitter, what we usually do in concert, which have very low latency in order to make the whole thing wireless and at the same time low latency, so we can make sure the ensemble playing will not be affected by the technical issue. And also about the feedback loop, we also got this one, the earphone conduction earphone. So it gives the vibration. And at the same time, also for people who have a little bit of hearing loss, still can able to relate their action of the music playing is related to the action of pushing. So all this feedback loop and also the network is something make the Joy of Sound musical system unique. That's what I think. Because we can expand instead of reduction when comparing to in the past when we talk about ADMI. And then we can also think about making it like more keys and make sure the musical instrument is adapting to the needs of the participants. So yeah, so that is more or less about my project. And of course, there's also limitations that I'm now working with, calibration, strength of the magnet, and also like a lack of testing. So because this one is still in the progress of development. But yeah, I'm quite sure like in the coming few months or a few years, this project can turn into a bigger system that everyone can have their hands on, because I'm going to make this completely open source if anyone is interested. Because if it's open source, then lower cost, then everyone can try to have their hands to amend on it, iterate on it, and then everyone can have the chance to enjoy music playing. Yeah, that's more or less about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Cheryl.
you.
That's so exciting, and we're always really happy to fund these projects. So it's so cool. Does anyone have any questions for Cheryl in the room? Or yes, do you have someone at the other side?
Yeah, I find it really interesting, the use of the TPUs and like varying the resistance through the structure. What are those structures like based on, and how did you vary like the resistance for those?
So the idea I tested out, so the TPU is, why is it in circle? Is because if it's in square, all the corners will stop you from pressing. So this one is the only way that you can make sure like the whole thing is sinking down together. And then for the thing is removing the walls is the crucial part as well. Because for the walls, it would also stop it from sinking. So I would say these are the top 2 tips. And for the infill is adaptive cubic, I guess, yeah. So for now, the infill is like between 8% to 15%. And then if it's more than 15%, most likely you'll probably be stomping on it instead of pressing it, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Say what TPU stands for.
Oh my God, I forgot. It's the chemical term. So take But I can explain a little bit. So the property of TPU is something we can use to build the insole of your shoes. So it's a little bit rubbery. So basically, it has a very high recovery rate, 95% more or less. I've been reading some readings. So that's why it's like quite durable and cheap in printing as well when you're doing 3D printing. But it takes a long time to print, just for my printer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Cheryl? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That was tremendous. I love the thoughtful way you do this. It's really great. You said you used earphones for feedback.
Yep.
Sometimes. Have you tried using haptic vests and that sort of thing to give feedback?
Yeah, I did think about all this as well. One of the things I feel about is meaningful feedback or meaningful haptic feedback. Like purely a normal vibration, it seems to be not making much sense at some point, because if we are playing the musical instrument, suppose it's like this area that we are working with. So that's why I kind of, at the moment, prefer to use the earphone conduction. And with people who doesn't have completely hearing loss, actually some of them can still hear a little bit of it. So, and also it's like the open ear design. So for people who have normal hearing, they can hearing it through this headphone, at the same time hearing the whole feedback from the group that we're playing the music together. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. We talked earlier before before we started. My question is I'm being very vague. No. But when you talk about expanding this or making a bigger setup, like a larger instrument, I mean, you'd consider that a single instrument for those four. How do you see that working? Would you be adding more of those, or would you have different?
Let me just grab it. Yeah. It was far away. Sorry, I forgot this one. So this one is actually a tile. That is the complete setup of one individual thing. So you can imagine if we're setting it up as expand, we can place them on floor if it's bigger, just really like a tile. Or we can put it randomly on the desk with different setup. So I think this is the way that I'm thinking about expanding it. Yeah. Right,
okay. No, that's, this is what I was wondering. So they can be arrayed, they don't have to be on a baseboard like that, they can be...
They don't need to be.
Floating around.
Because for this one, for the moment, first of all, it's easy for me to carry around to test play it. And secondly, for all these handles, we are trying to see if we can attach it to the wheelchair. So that's why, for now, it's in this shape.
Yeah, I like that shape. I like the kind of more organic shape of that. Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, someone at the front.
Kind of related to that, I was thinking about your participant that moves around a lot. I was wondering, like, if you've laid the tiles out on the table, maybe they can't stay still enough to get to the tile that they want to. So maybe the one on the long board, they could perhaps wear it in a way. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think for now, in the end, it's more about the idea of the system instead of like for now the shape, because it seems like if we are just having one tile being like this, we can put it in any shape, any form, as long as we can cut the board and things to put them together, or even just on a strap. So that would be quite flexible on things.
Yeah, I guess that's what's quite cool about it. You can put it different for different people's needs.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you for those insights. It's really fascinating to also be shown the way you've kind of developed this project, and like the troubleshooting and your honesty in that. I think it was really helpful and interesting to see into. I was kind of curious about like maybe the materials of this object, and I think maybe you mentioned that you looked at did I read something on the PowerPoint that said about like textile waste or e-waste
Oh,
or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to hear a bit more about
Okay, sure,
that
sure.
moment, and potentially could there be a moment in the future for that to return or come
Yeah.
back into the
Yeah.
sort of prototypes as something that's made of, I don't know, something more sustainable or more like ecologically
Yeah,
conscious,
totally.
appreciating that obviously these materials in this prototype form are also providing a lot. So yeah, any thoughts and reflections on that would be
Totally.
great.
I think for e-textile, one of the good things is like it's soft to touch, it's safe. But the downside is it's hard for us to sanitize it. So if we put it into the washing machine after several, of course, after over 20 times, it will having a little bit of problem of conduction. Like if you got some conduction problem, then that will be causing some problems on all the electric signals that we are sending through. So that is one of the reasons that I, in the end, give up on the e-textile. And the other thing is because for mechanical system, we can give the real physical resistance on things to give the physical feedback. But for e-textile, it's no such thing for the moment, because when you touch it, okay, or when we squish it, it will. Like if we are making a doll of things with the e-textile, then when we squish it, that will work. But at the same time is when we have all the cables being exposed, there may be some conductivity problems as well. So it's kind of making the signal harder for us to extract a very clean one in order to do the audio process. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. If anybody else has any other questions for Cheryl, please, I'm sure she won't mind answering more, because we are going to take a break. So thank you. Can we have a massive round of applause for this amazing instrument and for Cheryl Hui? So we are going to take a 20-minute break. Please come. Cheryl, can they try your instrument? Great. Okay. There will be a chance to play with Cheryl's instrument. And there are more instruments on the table. We're going to come back around 8:25. Please remember there are snacks outside as well. Take a breather, whatever you need to do. People following us on YouTube, please take a screen break. Go make a cup of tea, come back and join us around 8:25. And please continue talking to all our amazing presenters. We have one more presenter coming up that we're equally excited about. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back. I hope everyone had some fun with the instruments, and they will be here for a bit after we finish as well. And there will be an addition to those instruments as well that we're going to hear about now. Before I introduce Billy, I wanted to mention a few things before I inevitably forget by the end of the night. We have just had an amazing comic commissioned by Amble Skuse and the illustrator Geoff Winterhart. They have created, it's called Disability Dog, and it's a 2-page comic about accessible design, and it is perfect for people who are just thinking about getting started in design and making and want to start considering accessibility in their work. And you can find it on our website, and we'll soon be getting some physical printed as well. And there's loads of different versions of it, a video version, an audio version. And yeah, we're really, really happy that Amble and Geoff did that for us. So if you are interested in incorporating accessibility into your work, I highly recommend that comic. I want to take this opportunity as well to tell you about all the other DMLabs that happen in the UK. So we have DMLab London. We also have DMLab Northwest in Manchester. I'm going to forget all of them now. We have DMLab in Gloucester at the Music Works. We have DMLab Colchester, run by Clip. And we will soon be trying out DMLab Bristol, on the 23rd of April at Watershed in Bristol, there will be a DMLab, and we will send out and post lots more info about this soon, but anyone in the Bristol area, please save the date of 23rd of April. Okay, I think that is all I have to say for now, but I will come back and remind you of many things at the end. So for now, I want to introduce Billy Payne. Billy is another one of our seed funders this year. Billy Payne is one half of Billy and Andy's Music School CIC, a social enterprise working with young disabled and neurodivergent musicians, and is also a creative technologist who loves building instruments. He started learning to make and code after attending the first DMLab Northwest session over a decade ago, and has since developed many accessible instruments, both for other musicians and for his own workshops. Please welcome Billy.
Hello. So this is going to be a bit of a strange presentation in a way, because I'm going to be talking about an instrument that I haven't invented. It's an instrument that already kind of existed, and then I've copied. So it's an instrument called the pentachord, and here's some background about it. So there's a music shop in Manchester called Johnny Roadhouse, and I was up there, up in the top floor of Johnny Roadhouse, which is a kind of, I think it's a bit like Hobgoblin in London. There's lots of folky instruments in there. And I'd just come back from a workshop and I had my backpack on, and I was kind of browsing, and I knocked over a koto with my backpack while I was looking at this instrument, and the shopkeeper was really angry. Well, he seemed quite pissed off anyway, and I was kind of trying to placate him, but also just seeing this instrument that I thought was really exciting, because it seemed like it might be an accessible instrument. And it's this instrument, the pentachord. And so I kind of thought I'll buy it to like make him less pissed off with me. But yeah, and then I got it home, and it was quite exciting because there was little bits of paper stuck to the lid of the instrument, sort of explaining how to play it and stuff. And like there was a patent number. So I started sort of researching about it. And yeah, actually I didn't find this when I first looked, but I've since found it was patented in 73 in the UK and the US by a guy called Alan Thomas Robinson. And there's actually like a patent document you can get online, and it actually, like for ages I was thinking this has got to be an accessible instrument. This has to be like intended as an accessible instrument. But yeah, I found the patent document, and it explicitly says, and it uses like kind of quite old-fashioned language, so I won't say what it says, but like it was definitely intended as an accessible instrument. Yeah, and they're really rare, I think. I've not really found very much about them online. There's like three things I found online, and in fact I would put them on the thing. So there is an auction listing from ages ago. There's a post from someone saying, hey, I bought this instrument, what is it? And then there's this guy playing one, which I think he's made himself, or he's had made, so it's not one of the original ones that were made. At the same time as playing a dulcimer. And I've got here at the bottom, Google challenge, can you find more evidence of this instrument online? Because I have not been able to find anything apart from these three things. So if you want to use your phones to Google, that's fine. So yeah, what is a pentachord? So it's got 5 courses of strings, 5 sets of strings, which are all tuned to an open guitar chord. I feel like I'm probably going to start talking like everyone's a guitarist and knows what I'm talking about, so I'll try and avoid that. But for the guitarist, I think the intended sort of tuning is that each course is tuned to like an open E major or an open E minor. And then it has these movable bridges which allow you to sort of transpose that. So it's a bit like having 5 guitars and a capo, and they're all tuned to an open chord. And you can just, transpose them. The original one that I bought uses nylon strings, like a classical guitar. And it's really, I feel like it's very guitar-y. I think like it probably belongs to like the zither or harp family in a way, because it's a box and it's got strings stretched across it. It's not guitar-shaped in any way. But definitely the tunings and the spacing of the strings and the fact it's all lots of 6 strings, I'm fairly sure like whoever designed it was thinking, what if you can make 5 guitars in a box? But yeah, it's also got some kind of like cool things which you don't get in a guitar. And one of those is like, because the bridges are sort of halfway up the string, you can kind of do weird things like bend behind the bridge. I'll try and do it on this one, actually. Yeah, which you couldn't do on a regular guitar. But that's kind of quite like a couple of Asian instruments, like the koto and the guzheng, I think, have similar systems of movable bridges, which have like sort of bends in that way. So it's kind of a weird instrument. Like I think it's probably, my guess is that it's kind of come from someone who's in a very sort of Western folk tradition. But yeah, it's kind of got some things that are quite like other world instruments. And yeah, I think it was definitely intended for strumming and finger picking, and that's all in the sort of all in the patent. It says that's what it's for. So it's intended to be played like a guitar. And here is the patent from 1973. This is the US patent, and you can see the sort of basics of the design and stuff. Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, why is the pentachord interesting as an accessible instrument? So yeah, first of all, I'm going to say, like, I kind of feel like I had the idea of this instrument before I saw it. Like, I thought, you know, I do a lot of music facilitation, and quite often if I've got a group of musicians, quite a common thing that I do, and I think a lot of facilitators do, is get a guitar, tune it to an open chord, and give it to someone. If they're a new musician, it's, you know, kind of fun. And this is basically I think the logical conclusion of that is to sort of do more of it. So yeah, so it really works well as a one-handed guitar sort of replacement, in that it's all the sort of technique from a guitar is still applicable, transferable, so strumming, picking, fingerstyle and stuff. Yeah, I've sort of got here, open guitars tunings are great for jamming with new musicians, and this is 5 times as great because there are 5 times as many chords, and that is just maths. Yeah, it's also sort of quite unusual as like an accessible vocal accompaniment or like chordal instrument that sort of feels like, you know, you could sit in an open mic and play it and sing and it wouldn't be slightly strange. I mean, like, I think you could do it with other things, you could do it with thumb jam, but it wouldn't feel like authentic in a way, and I think that's one of the things that I think is really appealing about it. Yeah, I think 5 chords is actually, you know, could be quite limiting, but it's but I think most songs that I play are like 3 or less. So, you know, you can get through a lot of sort of pop and rock and folk repertoire with 5 chords. And also, you're not stuck with 5 chords for a set. You can transpose each chord between sets, but between songs rather, quite easily. So I'll just sort of, I don't know if I should demonstrate that. I don't know if with the cameras here. I just want to move a bridge so that someone can see that you can change the chord. Can I get the overhead? Thank you. Oh yeah, so I'll do it on this one. So yeah, so these bridges here, they just slide along. So they're sort of you can line them up with different chords, and that would just change the chord, just in case anyone's wondering. But yeah. Yeah, if we go back to the slides. Yeah, and yeah, I think the other thing that's like really been, it's something I sort of knew when I was starting out on this project, but I think has like really sort of come home to me more and more the more I've worked on it, is that acoustic instruments have a lot of like cool things built in that you try and replicate with technology, like, you know, they're sort of instantly expressive. They've got like an aesthetic appeal that is really nice. And you know, it just kind of comes naturally from trying to make the sound. You get these objects which are made of wood and, you know, strings and metal, and they look nice and they sound nice, and you can do lots of stuff with them. And like most of my instruments that I make are sort of codey electronics stuff, and I still try to make them aesthetic, but it's sort of almost an add-on, whereas this is how you have to make this instrument. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of cool. Here are the aims for the project. So one was that I really wanted to bring back this, what I thought was a really cool instrument from obscurity in a sort of open source, DIY friendly way. I wanted to create an instrument to use in my own sessions. So a lot of my sessions are kind of based around jamming and a lot of sort of stuff with bands, with young disabled musicians. And so kind of having something that works as a guitar or a vocal accompaniment or play chords is really cool. And I was also really keen to sort of explore variations and improvements on the original design. So a couple of the variations I was really keen to try. So the one I've made is a smaller one that's 3 chords. But I was also kind of thinking you could have like a power chorder where the chords don't have a minor or major identity, they're just power chords. So that'd be great for just kind of getting in and playing, some rock songs or whatever. And I wanted to make a louder electric version. So this original one has like a bit of a flaw, which is that it's quite quiet compared to everything else we have in our workshops. And when you strum it hard, the strings kind of quite often come loose. So I was like keen to address those 2 things. Firstly, by trying to make it so that the strings don't come loose, but also putting some guitar pickups in it to make it a bit louder. I also was kind of interested in just changing the tunings and stuff. I mean, that's part of like the different arrangements of chords, but I just thought, actually probably E major and E minor chord voicings are not the most exciting chord voicings in the world. So it'd be cool to try some different ones. There was like a lot of design constraints with this. As I say, I'm kind of used to working with code, and like code does do what you tell it to do most of the time, and it's usually you that is, the problem. But yeah, physical stuff is really like annoying. I've kind of created this triangle here. So this is the big problem I had, was I made this smaller version. And when you're trying to get a string to make a pitch, there are sort of 3 things that kind of give you the pitch. There's string tension, there's string gauge, which is the thickness of the string, and there's string length. And so I'd made string length way shorter. And so in order to sort of counteract that and have it still sort of feel and sound like a guitar, you have to sort of increase the string gauge or the string tension. That's all tricky. And I was also really scared of building something that could like fail spectacularly because of all the pressure, all the sort of force that is on 18, very tense strings. I was kind of worried about something just kind of collapsing. One of the design constraints was I kind of had this in mind as something that I would put on GitHub or put the design files online somewhere, and that someone who's, pretty handy, someone who probably goes to something like DMLab and knows their local hack space or something, could go and maybe make in a day or maybe make in a weekend. So I was kind of thinking it'd be great if it was like very little, proper woodworking, just like laser cutting, maybe a bit of gluing, but yeah, nothing too sort of messy or manual, just like, it's kind of like kit-like. I wanted it to be quite cheap, just because I didn't have very much money. Well, I had a good amount of money, but I didn't want to spend all of it. Another thing that was very annoying was my Hackspace laser cutter went down when I started making this. So I was thinking of making the full length one, but I couldn't because the laser cut was too small. So this is the one I made. And there's also sort of other weird things about making acoustic instruments to do with friction and break angle. That's like the angle that a string goes over a surface to sort of get the note. And getting those things right, dialing those things in, is really tricky, and I kind of didn't realize how hard that would be. But anyway, those are some of the design constraints. When I was trying this presentation out on my girlfriend, this is roughly the point where her eyes started to glaze over, because it's when I started just talking about techie stuff. But anyway, so here's the prototype development sort of stage. I did this all in Fusion 360, which is a design program, and one of the things I really wanted to try out was doing parametric design. So parametric design is where you kind of have some numbers, some sort of variables that are part of the design, like, for example, number of strings or number of sets of strings, and then you can just type in a number and it will recalibrate the design to that new thing. So I've kind of given you some examples. This is me typing in 1 set of 6 strings. This is me typing in 3 sets of 6 strings. This is me typing in 5 sets of 6 strings, and changing the length of the box as well. And that was kind of partly because I knew I had to make this small one for now, but I wanted to make a big one eventually, and that was going to save me time in the long run. But also I just thought, like, in terms of prototyping and in terms of other people, potentially taking on the design, that would help things in the long run. Yeah, learning Fusion 360 was really hard. I didn't enjoy that very much. But I think what was probably good is that most of my time spent on this project was design time. Like, I spent a lot of design time, which hopefully, if it is something that someone else picks up later, is time they don't have to spend, and they can just spend it building. And it probably did take me about a day or two to build, so that's about right. Yeah, so one of the sort of big challenges I had was the stable tuning, and that's another thing about the tension and stuff and all these sort of physical things about the instrument that were sort of frustrating. And that's something I'm a little bit worried about from an accessibility point of view, is that I think nobody wants to be tuning and retuning 18 to 30 strings before a gig, and definitely not like mid-gig. I feel like I've got it to a place where it's fairly stable, but I think that's something I still need to work on. And in sort of some of my user testing, some of the guys were sort of really going for it, and it was quite clear that it was possible to pull the strings out of tune, which is not great. But I think I've sort of got somewhere to kind of like correcting that. I found that there's a piano tuner's trick of putting super glue into onto the tuning pegs, and that kind of doesn't fully stick it, but it makes it quite sticky. I feel like all this is very boring, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to get on to the more interesting stuff. But this is all about how I built it and sort of stuff like that. And yeah, again, this is more boring stuff. This is about the bridges. But yeah, these are kind of tricky because, yeah, as I was saying about break angles, if a string is going over one of these movable bridges at too shallow an angle, you just get a kind of, if it's not too bad, it's like a banjo-y tone. You could probably hear like a bit of a banjo-y tone on this, but if it's really bad, it's just like a kind of rattle. You don't get the note coming through very clearly. And so kind of getting the right height and everything to get the break angles was difficult. And I was finding that, the sort of big selling point of this instrument is you move the bridge and the chord stays intact, but the fundamental changes. And in my first goes at making the bridges, that was not happening. And it's still not perfect. Like, you can't get all the chords you should be able to get without some starting to drift a little bit out of the chords they're supposed to be. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting there with that. And I think a lot of this comes down to, I think I made it too small. I think it needs to be a lot bigger. But yeah, okay, I think this is like the more fun stuff. So this is why I think this is a really cool instrument. I feel like the instrument sort of invites you to do things with it, beyond what were my intentions or what were the intentions of the person who made the original pentachord. Bending and vibrato behind the fret, which I did earlier. I don't think that was intended, but it's like a really cool, great effect. And I think something that, that I can imagine some disabled users using, even if they weren't able to sort of press down on a fretted instrument. I feel like you could probably still put some pressure behind the neck and get vibrato on the chords, and I think it's a really nice sound. And yeah, one of the things I tried, I bought a bunch of wooden dowels and started playing with mallets, and that just sounded instantly lovely, and it's kind of my preferred way of playing it now. But there's part of me that is disappointed that it's not functioning as a guitar as much, or its best version, its best life is not as a guitar. It's kind of as something else, I think. But it sounds great with mallets. And yeah, I think this is something that's just really nice about physical acoustic instruments, that they're sort of what you can do with them is not limited by what the designer put in. I think that's true with digital instruments as well. But there's just infinite ways to abuse this and use this and get weird sounds out of it. And create an expressive vocabulary. And yeah, we were talking just a little bit before people were coming in about sort of virtuosity in accessible instruments. And I think with anything that's sort of physical and acoustic, there's almost like a sort of an endless path of possibilities for playing, in a way which makes people go, wow, that's incredible. And, oh yeah, okay. So,
That's lovely, another one.
so this is my friend Ellen. She's
Very nice.
trying this out for the first
last
time.
set of strings?
I think I'm just
Too
going
far.
to stop talking.
No, it's a long way, isn't it, actually? I'll flip it round later so you can have a go. Okay, do you want to have a go with the sticks? I think Safe's harmonising with you. Can you hold with the other hand as well? Do you want two sticks? Or just one? That's great, Ellen. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to sort of say a little bit about that clip. Ellen, I've been going to Ellen's house and doing music sessions for probably about 10 years. And for ages, she was really reluctant to play any musical instruments. And that's changed recently, not solely because of this instrument at all, but it's in the last year she started being a bit more brave. And a lot of the instruments that she seems to have gravitated towards are sort of instruments which have a similar form factor to this in a way. So the omnichord, the 80s strummy electronic instrument, but also things like zithers or auto harps, and things that she kind of put on her little desk and are just there for her. And I think there's an element with Ellen that she's a bit self-conscious about her hands, actually, and so some things which aren't immediately suited to her body, she just kind of, you'll ask her whether she wants to play an instrument, which I think she probably could play, but she kind of looks away and looks very shy, and she kind of refused to touch anything for ages. But yeah, she seemed to really enjoy playing with this one. This is me just playing it in my living room. Oh no, that's not it. Let's see if I can get this working.
That's lovely, can I have another one?
Oh, maybe we can't watch that, actually. But I'll just move on. I think Ellen played it better than me anyway. So, yeah, one of the things that I started doing when I was building it was re-evaluating the tunings. As I said, I sort of feel like E major and E minor are not the most exciting chords. And I started thinking, particularly with having this trio chord version, this 3-chord version, whether having just a sort of plain major minor voicings would be kind of too boring, and maybe it would be good to sort of try different things. And also one thing that I kind of didn't like was the idea that it was just the same voicing across all the strings, and you weren't getting the sort of natural contrary motion of notes, so notes going both up and down when you move between one chord and another. And there was things that just didn't feel like a guitar, and I actually think maybe that's not that big a problem, but it just didn't feel sort of smooth and natural. And I was thinking maybe there's ways of getting tunings which feel like they belong together more and feel more expressive. Yeah, and I'm not sure where my next thought was that maybe you could try and get chords which have a sort of major and a minor tonality. So this is a bit nerdy for my simple guitar brain. This is a confused guitarist. This is a handsome version of me. Yeah, so if an E major 6 is the same as a C minor 7, I think. It's the same notes, but just reordered. And I thought about sort of making the chords all like that, so that you could sort of pick which chord by which strings you play. Or you could kind of get something that's kind of ambiguous so that it would fit over lots of different music. And then I was starting to wonder, maybe each chord voicing should be completely unique and completely different. And I started thinking about all the kind of weird, shoegaze and that kind of weird open tunings that are very fashionable online now. And I thought maybe it'd be cool just to have a bunch of those. And then I started thinking maybe extended chords impart too much of themselves on the music, and you want something that's more neutral. And I don't really know where I've landed on that. I think I think sometimes it's kind of nice to have something an instrument which sounds like that instrument and nothing else, and has note choices which wouldn't be chosen elsewhere. But at the same time, yeah, if you're kind of wanting to play traditional pop or folk repertoire, maybe you don't want, really fancy chords. But yeah, those are some of the things I've been thinking about. Oh yeah, so this is the one I've built. So here's a nice close-up picture. So yeah, this only has 3 chords, but I think, yeah, like I say, with good chord choices, you can get a lot out of just 3 chords. I think pickups make a huge difference to what you can do with it. So I've got it plugged into a guitar pedal here, and you can add fuzz and echo and stuff, and you can be heard above other musicians, which is great. Yeah, sort of my next, I would like to make a full-size one, and that might be the next thing I do, or potentially making the pentapower chord, the 3-string version. But yeah, yeah, that's that. I realised because I didn't show the video, I haven't really played this much, so I'll probably just do a little demonstration of what it sounds like when I play it. So one of my pickups isn't working, so this is through the mic at the moment, but we might switch to pickup in a minute. So you can do kind of, I'm going to kneel down, I think. You can do kind of finger piggy type stuff. And you can also strum. But yeah, the sort of mallet stuff that you saw Ellen doing, I think sounds really nice. And if you kind of have a really nice sort of loose grip, it sort of rebounds in a very satisfying way. Yeah, maybe I'll do a bit of bending. I probably should have worked out a piece or something to demonstrate it all, but those are some of the things you could do. Yeah, I'd love to hear questions. I'd also really love to hear people, if people are interested in me sending the design files and then having a go at making one, that'd be great. I think the parts don't cost a fortune, but yeah. Yeah, any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Billy? Anyone on YouTube have any questions for Billy? Yes?
Oh, thanks. Thank you. That was absolutely lovely. I think it sounds fantastic.
Oh, good, thank you.
A couple of questions. I'm not even sure how a koto works, but it's a very long instrument. With the bridge, could you have it so that you've got not just 3 chords on yours, but 6? So you would have, I know you've got the pickups, so obviously on your one, so it's different. But with the pentachord, presumably,
yeah,
the box resonates,
image.
the whole sound box resonates. So you could have 6 chords, couldn't you?
Yeah, and actually, I was, when I first saw it, I thought that was not using it the way it's supposed to be used. But actually, that's in the pattern. It does actually say you can get 6 or 10 chords out of it. Yeah, it is a little bit quieter on the acoustic version, and I guess you'd need to put pickups. But yeah, I think you definitely could. I didn't sort of go towards that partly because it was hard enough getting 3 chords in tune, and 6 would have been a lot harder. But I think it's definitely doable. Yeah, and probably would be yeah, really nice on a.
And have you tried a contact mic on the pentachord?
I haven't actually, no, and I do realise that would be a much quicker way of getting it electrified. But yeah, I had thought that would be a really nice thing to do. Yeah, and I probably will give it a go.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Are there any other questions? Yes, got a couple. It's you.
I'll nick it off you this time. You said there was a difficulty sometimes of the tuning going off. Rather than using araldite, maybe you could use pitch correction, the way that singers that can't sing use, so that you don't care what note it's producing, but you correct it to the closest proper note.
I had wondered about that. So I think an instrument that a lot of people will know about called the Telecaster, I think works in a similar way, just using the strings. I think they're tuned. I'm not sure if they are tuned or if they use samples, but I've played around with doing that kind of thing, a real-time pitch shifting 6 strings, just on a guitar, and it's really good. It works very well, but it's very like computer resource intensive. So it works on a very nice Mac, but with specific plugins and stuff. But yeah, I think it would be a really nice thing to do, and it's something I felt like if this had gone a lot easier and I'd been finished all the other things first, I think I would have started playing around with ways of doing that. Actually, yeah, I think it would be a really, really nice thing to do, and yeah, would sort of bring a lot of the same benefits of something like this, but yeah, a lot more versatility.
So I think we're all going around with the same kind of questions here, but I can't wait to see it with a separate output for each set of strings.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't believe I didn't think to do that. I've just got one with them all tied together, but yeah, that would be amazing.
That would tie into the pitch correction and pitch shifters and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's also another thing which I don't know if people have seen this new instrument where it's like a sort of lap steel guitar with a pickup which is external. It sort of comes out on a wire and you can hold the pickup close to the strings and do things. And I saw that the other day and I thought, oh, I wish I'd done that. That would be really good. But yeah, I feel like there's lots of different things you could play around with this like form factor, and yeah, it'd be really good.
Hey, Billy. Just want to say what an interesting find. Like hearing about the original instrument is really amazing. It does remind me of like Appalachian sort of musical instruments and whatnot. But what was striking me is that what you were just saying about how it's almost so, like you can vary it so much, almost making it more complex if you want it to be, or taking it and peeling it right back. I have a practical question about the way that the chords are set up. So are you presetting like what the actual chord is going to be, or do you have the opportunity to sort of like change what you're playing on those different like strings, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And can you then change it to like a minor if you're hitting like a couple of the strings, or do you pre-tune the whole thing each time?
Yeah, so so each set of 6 strings is sort of pre-tuned to have the intervals stay intact. So it will always be a major chord, but you can transpose that major chord. So there's not really a good quick way of changing. Is that?
Yeah, because I think you were talking about how you're interested in doing a lot of jamming, which is why I think this instrument has a place where you can allow more people to join in by having, if you're playing all one song, having some of the things preset, which is why I was interested in, if you're changing it up, is there a quicker way to do it yourself, or do you have to actually retune every time?
So could I have the camera's on? So you have some freedom. So I'm not sure what chord this is at the moment. I think it's probably a G major. So yeah, you have the option of making this an A major by sliding this up. Well, yeah, I think we've lost the intervals there, but in theory you do.
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah.
But yeah, so you have that, and this one works fairly well with that. But I think there's a lot of ironing out kinks with my one.
Have you tried like using a slide on it?
I haven't. My guess, I don't really. I'm not very good at slide, but I guess it'd probably be the scale length would be very hard because you get massive changes in pitch.
Yeah.
But I posted it online and everyone was like, yeah, like 3 slide guitars in one. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be definitely interesting. And I have thought about other ways of, instead of movable bridges, that you could change the point at which the string starts vibrating. I was thinking about maybe something with magnets or something might get a better contact and would avoid that sort of banjo-y tone and some of the tuning issues. But yeah, I think there's probably a few ways you could do it. And I did think actually you could just, if you sort of designed it slightly differently, you might just be able to use a capo, and that would be quite cool. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, question from YouTube.
We've got one more question. Okay, so the question is, could the instrument be expanded to have even more chords so that it could be played collaboratively by multiple musicians, or would that create tuning or other problems?
I mean, I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, yes and yes, I think is the answer. I definitely could do that, and I think that'd be a really nice thing to do with it. One of the things I've sort of like played around with before is collaborative instruments where you sit opposite someone and play it, and I think it's a really nice thing to do. And yeah, I think it's actually, it's not something that occurred to me at all, but I think it'd be a really great thing to do. The only tuning issues would be that the more strings, the more of a pain in the arse it is to tune. But for once it's in tune, it's fairly stable-ish. Well, hopefully one day it will be. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Is anyone else? One more, very quickly.
It's a very nerdy question. You mentioned you did parametric design. Kudos for that. Have you ever considered adding the string dynamics and actually getting the tunings out of the design?
Sorry, could you say that again?
So you could add the parameters of each of the strings into the software that you're using, and then it could actually spit out the tunings, the intervals, because it's all mathematically based.
Oh,
have you considered that?
Yeah, so I guess the way that would work would be sort of some way of parameterizing the bridge so that you get those tunings. And that, yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that'd be a really nice thing. Yeah, that's another thing that would be really nice to try. But yeah, I had such a hard time with parametric design that part of me is like, I don't want to do that again. But I think it could be interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, can we have a massive round of applause for Billy Payne? This has been such an amazing evening. We've heard such different inclusive tech things that have gone completely different directions and been so inspirational and informative. If we get a QR code up on the screen, which is another amazing example of accessibility, if you are able to, please can you scan this QR code and leave us some feedback? Yeah, I know everyone says this, but we really, really need it. We report back to our funders, and not only does it help us design these sessions so that we are giving you what you want from DMLab, we can also tell funders, current funders and potentially new funders, exactly how amazing DMLab is, and we'll get money to continue to run them. So your feedback is super, super valuable, and hopefully it's a super quick form. We'd also be really interested to know how you found out about us so we can reach more people. Yeah, we want to thank City Bridge Foundation for their funding, as well as Arts Council England. And I just want to thank everybody so much for coming, for participating and giving such insightful questions and suggestions for our makers as well. So yeah, thank you so, so much. And do not forget, Sunday the 24th of May, DMLab Festival here at Rich Mix all day. There will be much more information coming, but we're super, super excited to see you there. Thank you very much.